Hi, and welcome to Trust and Obey with Chuck Frank. We are studying the Book of Esther, and we're going to be studying chapter 8 today. So, what's transpired in the previous chapter? Esther invites King Ahasuerus and Haman to the second banquet in her private chamber. And this second time, things go pretty rough for Haman because Esther confronts him with his genocidal law and the fact that she is Jewish and that this genocide has to be stopped. So even though Ahasuerus was a party to this, and even though he gave his signet ring to make it official business that cannot be reversed, because he's drunk half the time, he is now outraged. And so Haman is condemned, he's taken out, and he's hung on the gallows that was meant for Mordecai. And his sons will be joining him on that gallows. And this kind of huge reversal is something that we see in our contemporary life. And we see the very same techniques being used. In this case, the technique that God uses is he allows evil men to have carte blanche. They can do whatever they want. And in this case, Haman takes his anger for Mordecai and blows it up into genocide of the entire Jewish race. And when we're watching this from the outside, we're going, oh my gosh, this is terrible. Look, this law is going into effect, and in the 13th day of Adar, they're going to wipe out all the Jews. And God has no intention of letting that happen, but we can't know that. And we've seen the same thing in contemporary times for the last 2 years, culminating in the election of November 24th. We have seen lawfare from every possible direction trying to destroy Donald Trump, his family, his businesses, trying to put him away for anywhere from 300 to 700 years, trying to remove his name from ballots. All of this ending in a complete reversal, not unlike what we see here in the Book of Esther. On November 4th, Trump has a landslide win. Somebody that all the experts said he'll never be back. Never be back. Absolutely no way. And this is the same situation we're seeing in Esther. Only we're starting to see how it all unfolds. So while this law is in effect, that on the 13th, you can kill all the Jews wherever you are in 127 provinces of the Persian Empire, that has also shown all of the Jews who their enemies are, because they're probably getting mouthy in their preparations. They're probably looking over the assets that the Jews have and saying, I'm going to go there because we're going to get that. They're showing all their cards. So now this chapter becomes critical as we see God unfold things. So this is I can't really tell from this if this is a picture of assembling the pieces of the palace at Susa or if it's a model. In some respects, it looks like a model, but it's very convincingly done. Whichever one it is, Chuck, get off it. The extent of this palace is just amazing. All right. Now, let's look at something else. The battle against evil is timeless. It is unending. So what do we have here? We have the Olympics in Paris, And this is the opening ceremonies, and this is a depiction of Michelangelo's Last Supper with the drag queen as Jesus and all the apostles as every kind of mutant imaginable. And this was given to an international audience. And France will be punished for this. And they are being punished for this. And we have not seen the half of it yet. But God will not be mocked. And this is not just mocking. This is straight up blasphemy. And it won't stand. But it tells you the battle that we're in. It is a battle against good and evil. And it's going on in our country. And it nearly took our country down. And we have one reprieve right now. So keep praying. On that day, King Ahasuerus gave the house of Haman, the enemy of the Jews, to Queen Esther, and Mordecai came before the king because Esther had disclosed what he was to her. So what's happened here? The king has given everything his prime minister owned to Queen Esther. And Mordecai comes before the king because Esther had disclosed who he was to her. Now he's basically a relation, right? Because he's in essence the adopted father, and Esther is his daughter, and Esther is the queen. Then the king took off his signet ring, which he had taken away from Haman, and gave it to Mordecai. And Esther set Mordecai over the house of Haman. So this is a 100% role reversal. Mordecai was the object of Haman's enmity, and he wanted not only Mordecai dead, but all of the Jews. And instead, Mordecai ends up being the prime minister and owning everything that Haman had. That's God's justice. Then Esther spoke again to the king, fell at his feet, wept, and pleaded for his compassion to avert the evil scheme of Haman, the Agagite, and his plot, which he had devised against the Jews. Now, all of this supplication was something that these pagan kings expected anyway. I kind of think that Esther knows that she could make the king lose face by basically exposing this plot, because the king was a part of the plot, even though he drunkenly was agreeing to all of it and not thinking it through and didn't know that his wife, the queen, was a Jew. Nonetheless, there's a huge danger here, a risk that she makes the king lose face. So she is just on the ground, weeping and pleading and begging, and the king extended the golden scepter to Esther. So once again, she could have been killed. It's not far-fetched. And instead, due to her bravery and her compassion and her ability to show him respect, he extends the golden scepter. So Esther got up and stood before the king. This is a marble bust of King Ahasuerus. And I like this bust because his nose looks a little rosy in it. I'm not sure why, but it's befitting his love of wine. Then she said, "If it pleases the king, and if I have found favor before him, and the matter seems proper to the king, and I am pleasing in his sight," again, fawning and fawning and fawning and fawning, right? Because these guys, their egos are so brittle. He goes, "Let it be written to revoke the letters devised by Haman." They can't be revoked. "The son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, which he wrote to eliminate the Jews who are in all the king's provinces. Why does he keep saying, devised by Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite? This is constantly saying over and over again that when the Agagites attacked the Israelites when they crossed the Jordan, that God said to them, okay, you're going to destroy those people. And I mean all of them, every single one of them. You don't let any of them escape. And they didn't do what God said. So we call our group Trust and Obey. There are promises that God makes, and you have to trust in him. And then there are things that he tells you to do, and you have to be obedient and do it. And when you're not obedient and do it, like the Israelites not wiping out all of the Agagites, it comes back to bite you. And he reminds you, you didn't do what I said. So when you decide that you know better than me, then you get to pay the bill. So for how can I endure to see the disaster which will happen to my people? And how can I endure to see the destruction of my kindred? So now, if King Ahasuerus was confused about any of this, which is highly likely, he's saying, oh my gosh, this queen who I love, and I don't know that this guy's capable of love, but God has touched him so that the minute he met Esther, he is in love with her. And he lets her get away with things that nobody else did. And this affects the history of both of these groups of people for quite a while. It says, so King Ahasuerus said to Queen Esther and to Mordecai the Jew, behold, I have given the house of Haman to Esther, and they have hanged him on the wooden gallows because he had reached out with his hand against the Jews. He's just, this is like a guy wobbling on his feet. He goes, I want to make sure I got this straight, and I'm not to blame here. I'm straightening this out, right? Because I'm such a great king. And again, here in our contemporary time, we have people genocidally hating the Jews, and this is, I believe, at Columbia, and these are what we call the from the river to the sea people. That's their chant on these college campuses. From the river to the sea. What they mean is Israel is wiped out. It's gone. From the Jordan River to the Med, it's over. So, nice. Great to send your kids to college, and this is what they come up with. And this is from a guy named Jeremy Myers. He writes of Esther's 5-step mission and why it's so incredible that somebody in this time where women had absolutely no rights at all, they sent guys out to 127 provinces to pick 2 or 3 of the most beautiful virgins and just tear them away from their family, tear them away from their country and culture, and bring them up and stick them in the king's harem. And then one gets brought to him a night. He basically rapes them. The next morning they go back, and for all but one of them, if he's not enamored with them, that's it. That's it. That's the end of their sex life for the rest of their life. That's the end of them seeing their families for the rest of their life. They just live in the harem with these other women and the eunuchs. It's a terrible situation. So Esther had to approach the king unsummoned. And anyone that did that, 9 times out of 10, they're executed. They just take them out and run them through with a sword or lop their head off. 2, Esther had to make her appeal and confess to being a Jew. So that was at the second banquet. Must have taken incredible courage because she could have offended the king by bringing up this terrible thing. And there's a chance that Haman could have prevailed over her because he's the prime minister. 3, Esther had to oppose the prime minister. That's Haman. He's the second most powerful person and a wily competitor in terms of the kind of snakery that we see in Washington, D.C. 4, Esther had to possibly make the king look bad. Because if this law is a horrible thing and the king participated in it, he gets splashed with the same mud Haman does. 5, Esther has to try to get the king to reverse the decree. So that's the big dilemma in this whole thing. All of these things are a huge risk. So we call this Esther's trust and obey model of risk management, which is basically you can weigh the risks, but you ultimately have to just trust God and do what's right. So let's see how that works. The king's decree avenges the Jews. So this is Ahasuerus says, now you write to the Jews as you see fit in the king's name and seal it with the king's signet ring. For a decree which is written in the name of the king and sealed with the king's signet ring may not be revoked. So this is a fascinating concept here. He can't get rid of the previous law, which says, wipe out all the Jews on the 13th of Adar. He's saying, now we're going to write a counter decree that's going to let the Jews defend themselves, organize, weapon up, plan for this 13th day of Adar. And the Jews have seen all the other people getting ready to go after them, so they know exactly who the enemy is. But now the muscle from Susa has changed completely. Now they're all starting to say, wait a minute, what? Mordecai's the new prime minister? Wait a minute, what? His daughter, his adopted daughter, is Esther, and she's a Jew, and they're Jews, and the Jews have the one true God of the Israelites, and that God punishes them, but he also intervenes on their behalf. And this looks to us like an intervention like we have never, ever seen in the history of our kingdom. So it's not just that he's sending out a counter law to the previous lawfare. It's that it looks to everybody like, wow, the God of the Jews is stepping in on this situation. Verse 9, so the king's scribes were summoned at that time in the 3rd month, that is the month Sivan, on the 23rd day. And it was written in accordance with everything that Mordecai commanded the Jews, the satraps, the governors, and the officials of the provinces, which extended from India to Cush, 127 provinces, to every province according to its script, and to every people according to their language, as well as to the Jews according to their script and their language. So this is written 128 different ways. Pretty amazing. And they have the scribes to do it. Now, how did they get it out there? They have a Persian postal system with these amazing horses raised from racehorses, and they can get this out over 1,500 miles of barely provided roads in 9 days, and that's in 450 BC. And I don't care where you are, if you try to mail something to the Middle East, it's not getting there in 9 days. I don't care what service, it's not getting there in 9 days. But these guys, they get it done. You know why? Because they lose their head if they don't. It makes people serious about their job. Okay, so Persian Postal Service. See, you got to study the Bible. You got to find out about the world and not be so cocky about who we are. Okay, He wrote in the name of King Ahasuerus and sealed it with the king's signet ring, because the king gave him the signet ring, which makes him the prime minister, and sent letters by couriers on horses riding on royal relay horses, offspring of racing mares. Why would all that detail be in there? Because it was a wonder. It was a technological wonder that somebody planned that all out, figured it out, bred the horses, trained the riders, and they got a postal system 450 BC. Can't stand it. In the letters, the king granted the Jews who were in each and every city the right to assemble and to defend their lives, to destroy, kill, and eliminate the entire army of any people or province which was going to attack them, including children and women, and to plunder their spoils. On one day, in all the provinces of King Ahasuerus, on the 13th day of the 12th month, that is the month Adar. So now a second law signed by a new prime minister with the king's ring, and it's saying, okay, there's one law we can't get rid of. That means all the Jews can be killed on the 13th day of the 12th month, Adar. And now here's this. The Jews can all organize, assemble, destroy, kill, eliminate everybody, wipe them all out, anyone who represents the enemy, and plunder their spoils. A copy of the edict to be issued as law in each and every province was published to all the people so that the Jews would be ready for this day to avenge themselves on their enemies. How would they know what their enemies were? The previous law was out there for quite a while, and that made these people bold and cocky, so they showed themselves. God has allowed Trump to use this same tool. Trump was saying for months before the 2020 election, these people are going to steal it. They're going to use the pandemic and say, oh, we can't go to the polls. We'll spread the pandemic. We have to mail in. And then Mark Zuckerberg steps up with $400 million to pay for all of the logistics of printing up false ballots, trucking them from out of one state into another state, and then all the couriers running and stuffing ballot boxes. And Trump announced all that was going to happen. And then guys like Dinesh D'Souza chronicled it all in 2,000 Mules. And Trump has the receipts on all of this. It is exactly the same thing as Esther. He lets evil people get too cocky, step forward, identify themselves, and then they get taken down. We're waiting for the takedown, and it's coming. And they know it's coming. That's why they're planning riots for the summer of 25, actually early summer, probably May, June. The couriers, hurrying and speeded by the king's command, left, riding on the royal relay horses, and the decree was issued at the citadel in Susa. Then, this is great, Mordecai went out from the presence of the king in a royal robe of violet and white, with a large crown of gold, and a garment of fine linen and purple. And the city of Susa shouted and rejoiced. Now remember, the last time they saw him, he was wailing in sackcloth and ashes in front of the king's gate, making a spectacle of himself, looking horrible, and everyone was reading this decree saying, oh no, the king signed a decree saying all the Jews have to be killed on this date. And now they see him. He's dressed not just like a prime minister, but like a high priest in finery. The only way he got it was from the king. So as soon as he shows up in that outfit, They know the king is 100% behind Mordecai and Esther. That turnaround scares them crazy. They didn't understand what was going on before, but now they see this role reversal, and they all see Haman hanging on the gallows he built for Mordecai in his front yard. For the Jews, there was light, joy, jubilation, and honor. In each and every province and in each and every city, wherever the king's commandment and his decree arrived, there was joy and jubilation for the Jews, a feast and a holiday. And many among the people of the land became Jews. Remember, the Jews were brought as prisoners. They've been living in this pagan land for 100 years or more. And now, because of this incredible miracle that's happened, everybody wants to be a Jew. Everybody wants the protection of the God of the Jews. And everybody wants to be in favor of this queen and prime minister because they know that two of them are definitely going to have control over Ahasuerus. So they're very quick to see which way the wind's blowing. And many among the people of the land became Jews because the dread of the Jews had fallen on them. Just amazing. And we're going to see something like that. I don't know what kind of form it's going to take, but we're going to see it in the next 18 months. Okay? And I'm saying this on April 3rd, 2025. For such a time as this, these are just some reinforcing scriptures for us. Do not let this book of the law depart from your mouth. Meditate on it day and night so that you may be careful to do everything written in it. Then you will be prosperous and successful. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. I want to say that 3 times. Okay? This is April 3rd, 2024. God is saying to all of us in this country, be strong and courageous. Do not be terrified. I want to say it a 3rd time. Be strong and courageous. Do not be terrified. Do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. That's from Joshua. For the Lord your God. Now, if you're enjoying what we're doing here and he's not your God, you should be thinking about that. You need to make him your God so that you will be prosperous and successful. Throughout Scripture, we see that God blesses and honors those who trust and obey him. Do you want to be blessed by God? And many among the peoples of the land became Jews. Take a look at what you're seeing. And then watch how many people over the next 3 years become Constitution-loving Americans who are proud of their country, patriotic Americans. This is what the Lord Almighty says. In those days, 10 people from all languages and nations will take firm hold of one Jew by the hem of his robe and say, let us go with you, because we have heard that God is with you. This is what happened when things get tough. And all of a sudden, everything you've counted on before, you know, is hollowed out and of no benefit. Then God starts to look good. So we're doing this work so that you can find out who God is and what your relationship is to him before that happens. Blessed are you, Israel, who is like you, a people saved by the Lord. He is your shield and helper and your glorious sword. Your enemies will cower before you, and you will tread on their heights. Now, this is not the Israel, the country today. This is ancient Israel, dependent on God and worshiping God. And here we are at the Wailing Wall. And we're going to have a word of prayer to finish. And if we're at the Wailing Wall, then we are going to hear a Psalm of David, a prayer for deliverance from evil men, because right now our country is overrun with evil men. April 2025. Understand it. Pray to God for strength and wisdom of how we're going to deal with the evil that wants to topple our country. This is Psalm 140. Deliver me, O Lord, from evil men. Preserve me from violent men who plan evil things in their hearts. They continually gather together for war. They sharpen their tongues like a serpent. The poison of asps is under their lips. Selah. Keep me, O Lord, from the hands of the wicked. Preserve me from violent men who have purpose to make my steps stumble. The proud have hidden a snare for me and cords. They have spread a net by the wayside. They have set traps for me. Selah. I said to the Lord, you are my God. Hear the voice of my supplications, O Lord. O God, the Lord, the strength of my salvation, you have covered my head in the day of battle. Do not grant, O Lord, the desires of the wicked. Do not further his wicked scheme, lest they be exalted. Selah. As for the head of those who surround me, let the evil of their lips cover them. Let burning coals fall upon them. Let them be cast into the fire, into deep pits, that they rise not up again. Let not a slanderer be established in the earth. Let evil hunt the violent man to overthrow him. I know that the Lord will maintain the cause of the afflicted and justice for the poor. Surely the righteous shall give thanks to your name. The upright shall dwell in your presence. Amen and amen. Thank you for studying this 8th chapter of Esther, and God bless you.